Welcome to Sports Trebuchet Podcast, Issue 4, Episode 4, the Brett Favre episode.
Ew.
Ew.
Massive ew.
Brett Favre was
I don't wear Wranglers.
top 5 quarterback from Southern Miss.
Nick Mullins is number one.
Yeah, I think Mullins just surpassed him. Welcome to Sports Trebuchet, as I said. Follow us at Sports Trebuchet on Twitter. Rate, review, subscribe, please, so we can have more than like 4 listeners. Our wives are sick of hearing this. I'm just play it on
My
loop
wife
in my
hates
house.
me.
Yeah, it's honestly a stress on our relationship in general. So whatever you can do to help, we appreciate it. And since we are Sports Trebuchet, I'm going to start out with a question for Josh that has nothing to do with sports at all.
This is early. Okay.
Yeah, it's super early. Do you think it was coming late? You mean to ask late?
I didn't know what it was coming at, so throw it at me.
We don't want to bore people by leading off with college basketball, so I figured we could
Fuck
start
you.
with that.
It's not sports related at all.
No.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you just the brief story of how I got to this question.
Okay.
Okay, because I texted Kyle when it happened. I was driving home, and it was like last week. So I was driving, and I was exiting, and I got cut off by a truck. And like my first instinct, always getting cut off, or like if I'm in a jam and somehow accidentally cut someone off, is like, man, I hope I don't get shot, right? Because like it's a very real concern in America and in Charlotte with so many country people really close by. It's like you never know, right?
Yes, definitely me.
And so
I'm always packing.
the question I was going to ask about is in relation to this initial thing. When I looked at the truck that cut me off, he had 3 decals on his back window. One was a cowboy riding a horse. One was a horse. And one was like a head of a horse. Like super, super horse related.
I think
truck.
he likes horses, yeah?
Yeah. And I figured with you marrying the resident horse girl, that maybe you could relate. And I thought to myself, like, all those horses, I bet that dude definitely owns a gun, right? But would he be more or less likely to own a gun than someone who has truck nuts? And do you know what truck nuts are?
Yeah.
And what I wanted
do.
to, and what I
saw
wanted,
them
He's
once.
genuinely excited about
Yeah.
it.
I saw them once, and I was like, that looks like he's got a nutsack on his truck. I was like, that's weird. And then I Googled it to see if it was like something I didn't understand in like towing, and I was like, no, he's just a bell end.
right? Yeah.
That was the...
So what I wanted to ask, is there an England or European equivalent to truck nuts?
No.
There's not?
No.
No, there's not.
There's
like
not. It's a great question.
I thought maybe like it was like an English, like a Mini Cooper driving around with like Boston Terrier nuts. It's Boston, so I guess
No, it's just 2 biscuits hanging.
it's
out
2
the back.
biscuits. It's a tea bag and biscuits.
Tea bag.
That's exactly what.
No, it's not.
All right.
We don't really have many any kind of stuff on our car at all in terms of like all these college stickers that you guys have, all of the sports stickers, all of the different shit you have on your cars. Like, we don't really have any of that. Like you'll quite often see.
Is that so you're not a target when Ireland bombs you guys?
I mean, sure, 20 years ago. Like, like we, especially on game day, if you're traveling somewhere, you'll see like a bunch of people with like their scarves hung up in the back of on like the back window or stuff like that, like sports wise, but generally like stickers, stuff like that. There's not really a lot of it. It's really only just.
So then the European equivalent, because you've at least been around other parts of Europe, right?
Right.
Is there, and I'll use an example, the Fast and Furious franchise, really, really big with the Latino population.
Sure.
Right? And when when Sarah and I lived in Mexico, you'd have someone who was maybe in a nice car, maybe in just like an absolute beater of a car with lowered like the rims, the body kit that's scraping the cobblestone and just ruining it, and like all of that bit. Is there demographics that lean towards certain car modifications in Europe? Like, do German people have like extraordinarily jacked up trucks for no reason at all? Like it just, or
They for some reason are using Ford.
Yeah, for some reason
Buy
it's Ford.
American.
All the factories got shut down after World War II, so they had to lean towards us.
Other than Volkswagen Beetles.
Or like France, do they have like always have like big rims on their cars or anything?
Not really. Like just from an English perspective, like if you have the ones with the body kits and shit like that on, you know they're always going to be beta cars. They're always going to be old shit cars, and you know that they're going to be owned by a lad aged 17 to 19.
See,
who think they're badass.
Yeah,
and like do their car up, and it's just like a really bad go-kart.
Because I think for like our age group, that age group was right, and it still kind of is, but like. One of the guys who ran me and Sarah helped run us across the border down south where we got to avoid a lot of like the tolls and stuff.
The wolf.
The wolf, essentially. It's a coyote though, you idiot. Wolves
are too cool.
No, you know what?
Yeah, no one cares about a wolf. They won't fuck with them. But a coyote, like you hate them being on your property. You see the relation. He drove like an F-150 and it was in good condition. He kept it like super, super clean. He was a neat freak about his car. It definitely had blue flames on the side. It had the entire back window covered in the rosary beads and Virgin Mary decal. And there was a Native American woman, what is the paint that's like all soft touch shit?
Oil paint?
No. Like whenever you'd see like Free Biggie and it's like spray painted on a shirt, it's got a style. I forget the name of it. It's like
like Jet Set Radio back on.
It's similar too, but it's not as sharp. It's more like powdered edge.
Airbrush.
It's
airbrush.
An airbrushed Indian woman lying half naked across the back of the tailgate with like mountains in the background. And we rode in this truck a couple times. And
this was your wolf.
This was our wolf.
Very. His subtlety isn't really matched. Cool. It's ironic, dude, given how out there his car is.
So his name was Oscar, and he was also one of the only people that spoke like perfect English because he had.
If you're going into Mexico, it's technically a lobo at that point.
That you are right. Yeah. What's the Mexican word for coyote? Coyote. He spoke really good English because he lived in America. He lived in America for like 12 years and actually made his way to North Carolina, got deported, made his way back into North Carolina, got deported again, and he's like, I'm just going to stay down here. I'm chilling. And he was just like...
I'm good now.
All I did was like, he worked on farms here. But I'm glad to know that North America has the dumb car mod like market on lock, which is
there are hundreds of cars I'll pass every day that wouldn't legally be allowed on the road in the UK
because of the shitty condition.
Just because there's a shitty condition or the mods they have on them. So at home they
black lights underneath.
Well, we're also in a unique experience because South Carolina is so close to us, and they don't require state inspections, right, which is baffling. So like you could literally be just like spewing.
Tennessee doesn't either.
Really? Yeah. So we're surrounded by it.
So
all these mountains are
like it's the same thing for us. Like we have to do something called an MOT, and it's the exact same thing as like an inspection, like just to make sure it's like fit for standard. But there's also a whole bunch of stuff that you guys have on your cars that's illegal at home. So like when you drive on like the Ford F-150s and they have those big metal barbells at the front, like the big metal bars. That's
the grill, like
the grill. They're illegal because during crashes they put the rate of like fucking someone up from like 10 to 100. Like if you get hit by one of them, they're just gonna crush you.
Well, and there's also not like
all of our
millions.
Land Rovers and shit. Like all of our Land Rovers and Farmers and stuff would all have them for towing, but they had to only use. They made them illegal for road.
Oh, so like just the normal grill, no big deal. But the one that has like the cable and everything in it, those heavy duty ones.
Yeah, those ones that are built for that stuff. Like they had to get their like the farm. Like people who have them on like proper Range Rovers and shit, they had to take them all off when they're on the road because they were just like they were taking your life chances to like zero.
Yeah, no, because they weigh a ton.
Yeah.
So like because I've seen one drop off a truck before because it wasn't installed correctly, and the amount of sparks that flew up was almost just like watching a miniature car on fire in the middle of the highway.
You thought that Goldberg was going to walk through.
Yeah, Goldberg actually stepped through. Took a deep breath. And instead he ripped out a transmission instead of hit the jackhammer. So
and then quit WCW.
And then quit WCW.
And then it injured Bret Hart.
I did see someone that was like
Hall of Famer.
A quick aside before we get to college basketball talk. That was just like what has died or got canceled that you'd like to see back, and you see like Firefly or like Battlestar Galactica. I don't think I actually saw that one. I made that up, but
it's just
But shows like
Your own feelings.
Community, whatever, Arrested Development.
6 seasons.
Someone put WCW, and I never realized how much I missed WCW until. I mean, I knew, but that was just like, man.
Go back on the network and watch like the really late WCW.
The problem with WCW is
it's just
it
having
had a
something
shelf
else,
life
right?
from the minute the NWO ran the show, it had a shelf life. Like just like the way like Ring of Honor have got to be super careful with Bullet Club, because if they get to a point where they run the show, like Ring of Honor will end up like investing too much, just like WCW did.
Yeah, well,
and when
that's
they
why
all
I
get
think-
old and leave, they were fucked.
Well, I think New Japan does a good job of keeping those separate too, because it's not the only like.
They've all nailed it so far.
Yeah, they've and it's not. It's a cornerstone, but it's not load bearing. If the Bullet Club left, New Japan would be fine. It would lose some of the market share because of whatever.
But they would
Anyways,
have a chance.
let's go sports, because everyone else that tuned in, by the 3 people, I mean like Kyle in Dallas, Jack in Phoenix,
His mom.
Jack's mom and sister.
Call
I forgot
me.
about that. Our wives. I'm just doing a shout out to everybody that's listening.
I can't even get my wife to listen.
Let's do Kirk in South Carolina. I'm gonna make him listen so that he retweets to his subscribers. Jeff from Michigan. Good shout to him. Let me see who else.
Bad
here.
fantasy football team.
Bad,
That's fine.
awful fantasy football team.
Who you dropping this week, son?
Yeah, just other than another game.
How's your spreadsheet?
Oh man, he's gonna not like that.
That's fine.
He's never gonna listen this far.
He is, because I guaranteed him Big Ten talk, which I'm sneaking up on all y'all.
No, that's not.
We're gonna spend 25 minutes on Rutgers.
Great.
All right, so it started yesterday, right? The college basketball season?
Basketball season started yesterday officially.
Cool. So before Kyle gets started on a little bit of talking about it, I don't know what he intends to really talk about, whether it's Syracuse specific or the whole kind of season preview-ish, or just kind of what to watch for. But where we stand on college basketball, Josh can't be bothered, which is understandable. But
I don't get it.
you don't get it. Well, so like, and for me, like I'll watch college. Listen, I'm so excited for the season to start on March 1st when it matters.
When it's
Conference tournament time, because then I'll watch.
What about the week before when you get all small conference tournaments going?
I'm there. I'm ready to see where the SWAC's going to seed in the tournament and who they're going to lose to, and just
Which 14 seed
gross,
they're gonna be?
which gross matchup they're going to get when they face like a down and out Arizona that'll beat them by 60. But Kyle's the biggest college basketball fan I know, I think. And
I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of like a holiday to me when basketball season starts. I'm growing up in the North, being a Syracuse fan for as long as I've been alive.
And don't you do the Hanukkah setup where the first week of college basketball you're lighting a candle, or is it they put out a candle? I don't know how.
They light candles.
I don't know how it works. Menorah. Okay, yeah.
No.
Not Minoru Suzuki, but Menorah college basketball. All right, Kyle.
Go for it, mate.
So so obviously the season started yesterday, and a lot of good matchups to start off the year. We had Florida State beating Florida, which kind of crazy to have that in-state rivalry to start the season. I don't, Josh, you probably don't know this. So a lot of in college basketball, what they do is you schedule your out-of-conference schedule, and you don't usually pick too many crazy tough games, because you're trying to build your resume for the end of the season to get into the field of 68 at this point, if you don't win your conference tournament.
And how many games are in a season? He doesn't know that.
There's 30 to 35.
Okay.
It's kind of up in the air depending on how many, if you get into like a pre-season, or they call it a preseason conference, or a preseason tournament or something like that, but it's not really preseason, it's just early season. But they do. There's a lot of schools that will schedule a few marquee games, just to up their resume as well. Be like, hey, we played, some really good competition. You wouldn't think that you'd open up your season with a Florida State, Florida, or the other two games, which is almost mandated. But it's called the Tournament of Champions. But seriously. But you wouldn't have thought that Florida
For those
State.
not able to see, Marty was giving a jack-off motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the Tournament of Champions. It's just so pretentious.
Oh, it is. The first game out of that was Kansas versus Michigan State. So this is number 1 Kansas against number 10 Michigan State.
So number 1 is the best team.
Yes, top 25, a lot like college football.
So I've got betting odds in front of me on Odds Checker,
Okay.
which gets all the betting odds across like major betting sites, and they have Duke Blue Devils as the favorites.
The Blue Devils they're 101st.
Okay.
Kansas a second. So how do you feel about that?
So I'm sure that this changed after last night.
Okay. It may
First of all, preseason rankings. It's done by the AP. It's not.
The same people that do college football.
Yeah. It's preseason. It doesn't mean shit, really. People have betting odds, and that's fine. Or people have their rankings. Doesn't mean anything. Betting odds are going to continually change throughout the year.
Sure.
But the rankings will not change until next week. Maybe. If somebody loses, maybe. We might have somebody fall. But Kansas number 1, Michigan State number 10. Kansas ended up winning. Michigan State, even though they lost, they're going to be there at the end of the year. They're always there. It's Tom Izzo.
It's the most frustrating. Michigan State.
You can guarantee at least Sweet 16 out of them usually.
It's
year.
weird that Kansas drifted after winning. Did they not play very well?
No, they won by 3 points, but it's the fact that Duke, number 4 in the country, beat number 2 Kentucky by 30 points last night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now
So
I get why. It's more that they went up than anybody
And
else.
as much as I hate to say it, Duke is going to be really fucking good this year. They recruited better than I've ever seen them recruit this past year, where they got 4 of the top 10 players in high school basketball to sign with them, including the number 1, 2, and 3. And they put on a show last night. They did. Now, I will temper this with Kentucky doesn't always... I don't have the greatest feeling for Kentucky just because they're a one-and-done factory. They bring in these freshmen that will stay a year and then go to the NBA.
You also hate their coach.
Yeah, well, that's the part of it too. They're one and done. Calipari, I do not think he's a great coach.
So here, hold on. Oh no, I was gonna have him pronounce his name. Did you hear what he just said?
No.
Okay, so Duke's head coach, Coach K. You always hear we're in Carolina, so you'll always hear that shit. That's his real last name. That's why they call him Coach K.
Okay.
You gonna take a shot at that last name?
Krzyzewski?
It's fairly close.
It's not far off.
Krzyzewski.
I mean, I watch European football all the
It's
time.
made up name.
I'm lucky enough to be.
You know what? That's a good. Yeah, and you said you're a huge fan of the Polish team too, so that makes sense.
avid.
Yeah, can't get enough.
Your jams.
Give me that Robert Lewandowski any day.
Oh boy. So I kind of wanted to go through like the top 10, kind of get your thoughts on. I know Marty, you might have some more thoughts on this.
I'll give you loads of thoughts.
I want your thoughts. Your uninformed thoughts. I want them. So 10 Michigan State. Kind of just went through them. Number 9 Villanova. They're coming off an
Didn't they win? Yeah, they won last year.
Oh, they won the whole thing last year?
Yeah. They don't have all the players, obviously. They have people
Here,
go to the NFL, go to the NBA. This is different. This is not the AP poll that you're showing.
I've got my 10 on the odds anyway, and they're all matching up, so I'm good.
Okay, well, either way, I'm just going to have this up here.
Okay.
I'm just going to literally read everything about every team.
God, Syracuse so far down. Syracuse is actually 16th in the country.
Really?
Yes.
You are 50-1 to win the whole thing.
Yeah. Hey, they've got a chance. They really do. North Carolina is number 8. They're always going to be there. They recruit like crazy. They're a blue blood. As much as I hate to see it. Here's the first kind of surprise if you're kind of looking for blue bloods. Number 7, Nevada.
Good, man.
It's because they have those 2 brothers, the Martin kids.
Yeah.
They are fucking awesome. They're going to be so much fun to watch this year. They got a lot of love after their run last year, and they are going to be a force to be reckoned with.
How can you not love them being called the Wolf Pack, too?
That's true.
Yeah, Nevada.
There's a couple of wolf packs out there, though. NC State's the wolf pack.
Yeah, but this is the
Nevada's
pack
infield
you
league.
told me about, so I'm...
But also, like, if I'm going to fuck with somebody, it's going to be a North Carolina wolf, not a fucking Vegas
Nevada
wolf.
wolf, yeah.
Like a Nevada wolf, like it feels like they've had a harder go.
I agree.
You're right.
More,
a lot of wolf talk.
More snakes. Yeah, you know
a lot
what?
of
Welcome
wolf
to
talk.
Sports Wolf, you say?
That's your episode tagline.
Wolves. Number 6. Good old Rocky Top, Tennessee.
Gross. Really?
Yeah.
Who's their coach now?
I'm pretty sure it's Rick Barnes.
The Tennessee Volunteers.
Is it really?
Yes.
Rick Barnes finally left Texas?
He left Texas a while ago.
Really?
Conzo Martin is Texas's head coach. Remember Conzo?
No, I don't.
VCU? Oh, not Conzo Martin.
Anthony Grant?
No. Shaka Smart.
Yes, I remember
Conzo
Smart.
Martin was the old Tennessee coach.
Okay, I was going to say, because I was like, I don't think that's the guy.
Sorry. Rick Barnes is now in Tennessee.
And Shaka Smart's at 10. I knew Shaka was at Texas. I guess I
Yeah.
didn't think about it. But I guess Rick Barnes, I never.
Yeah, he went there a couple years ago.
Weird.
And
So they'll have one Final Four appearance, and then he'll just disappear off the face of the earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they have probably one of my favorite names in college basketball as one of their best players, Admiral Schofield.
Admiral Schofield. Oh, you know
That is
what?
an incredible
This is a point. Before you continue, we were going to do a segment of the most Red Dead Redemption name in sports. What's that guy's name?
Admiral Schofield.
That's
That is
pretty
an
close.
Absolute incredible.
That's a
shout.
banger.
And he's a
That's
6'6",
absolute
240
banger.
guard.
Yeah, if we come across some more talking, then we'll think of him. But so far, that's who's winning it.
Number 5, Virginia. I don't know how they're that high after losing to UMBC.
Well, how many did they return from that team?
Oh, they returned quite a few, but they lost 2. They're the first number 1 seed to lose to a 16 seed ever.
Yeah.
And they got blown out.
Do they not have a special name? They're just Virginia?
The
Virginia Cavaliers.
Cavaliers, okay.
Yeah.
They have probably one of my least favorite people in college basketball, Kyle Guy, on their team. He's that dude as a freshman. He had a man bun. And he,
I'm not even sure.
oh, he's a clown.
Oh, I see a picture of him
Yeah,
right now.
I'm not a huge fan of him.
He's an ugly twat.
Yeah, I don't like him. Number 4 is Duke. Obviously, they are going to be going up throughout the year. They're going to be a team that's going to be tough to beat. Kyle Guy.
There he is.
What a doucher.
What a guy.
No.
He looks like a shitty bartender at a club.
Looks like Macklemore's.
Ooh, yeah.
He does.
He's Macklemore's DJ.
Oh.
Backup DJ. Road DJ.
Oh, he's the worst. That's what
Macklemore's
he is.
before and after meth.
He's got a very punchable face.
That idiot.
No, you love Tyus Battle.
I don't.
Battle's the best.
Okay.
Tyus Battle is
Look at Mike Dunn for South Dakota State in the top 20, dude.
No, he's good, man. Number 3, Gonzaga.
Standard. Right?
Yeah, they turned into a national power. I'd like to see them do something in the tournament. They do have a real fun. They've got a really top-notch player, and his name is Rui Hashimura.
Japanese?
It's like half Japanese, half black, I think.
That's sick, dude. Like,
Yeah.
there's not enough Asian
He's,
representation in basketball, so, like, I'm here for it
He's from
completely.
Japan. He's 6'8", 230. He's a
Fucking 6'8" in Japan is bonkers,
he's
dude.
half black.
Why did you whisper that, Kyle?
I don't know. He's half black. No, he's a tall dude, and he's good. He's really fucking good. They also have a guy named Joel Ayaye on their team. Not
Joel
Ajayi.
Ajayi?
Joel Ayaye instead of a J. And then you round out the top 25 or top 10 with Kentucky at number 2. Still not sold on them. We'll see what happens. And number 1, Kansas. They're always going to be strong. They got Azubuike back as their center. They did lose Graham, but they should be fine.
So I
Just
think
reload.
that, and we'll see if the listener agrees. But like the fun part about a lot of this, introducing you to some of these sports and different teams, is we get a chance to try to retrofit it into the Premier League. And like, and so like when he's saying blue bloods, right? Because we talked about this in college football off the podcast, but there's like a list. There's the Premier League 6, right?
Right.
Like your Manchester
They're
United,
always good.
Liverpool.
But do your bloods ever change?
You mean
Not very often. Well, Kansas and Kentucky they've always been there. Duke has always been there. North Carolina has always been there. Michigan State's a pretty new.
Well, like Gonzaga's one. So Gonzaga's one that's in a smaller conference, and so for a long time they were successful,
That's a good name.
but they didn't have like the competition that a team like Kansas did. So they weren't taken seriously, but they'd always come into the tournament with like 3 losses because
they were one of those teams that they had a really great point guard in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, in John Stockton.
Oh shit! I didn't know Stockton was like
his son went there too afterwards. And
how did his son do?
Played pretty well. Yeah, he played pretty well.
Did his dad assist him at all?
All day long. So Stockton was there, and then they kind of had a fall off, and then in the late 90s they had a real magical run where they were in the NCAA tournament where they didn't have the players, but they made it to like the Elite Eight, and they shouldn't have been there. But then all of a sudden they started to grow their popularity, and they started to get these guys that could legitimately play, like Adam Morrison, who was a terrible NBA player but a great college player, and they started to build their cachet. Where all of a sudden, and then they started playing great competition to start off the season, and now they're one of the best teams out there.
Yeah, and there's like college football success can help a smaller team get bigger. But it's got to be over time. Same thing with college basketball. But like a good example of this is VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. It's like a small liberal arts school. Mm-hmm. And in like was it 06 that they beat Duke in the tournament, or 07?
Yeah, with Eric Maynard.
They upset a blue blood.
Okay.
And it was like, wow, this is crazy. And I think they went to the Elite Eight that year, didn't they?
They went fair. They may have lost the next round or something like. But they knocked off a perennial power.
It was a huge splash. The next year, their applications for enrollment like almost doubled. So it immediately led to growth for the school that they ended up pumping back into the basketball team, because in this case, that team was one of the only like major sports teams that they had. They didn't have a football program or anything else to pump money into.
They also started to get a little bit of national notoriety after that, so they started showing their games on TV a little bit more. And when you get a little bit of visibility, all of a sudden
can snowball.
Right. All of a sudden, you start to get better recruits.
Yeah, a good player in dipshit Mississippi. If they see on ESPN VCU, they at least know what that is. Where before then, no one had really heard of VCU that gave a shit about college basketball because they weren't on the radar relative.
So you get these guys that, maybe they might get an offer by Ole Miss or Mississippi State, but they're never really in their plans to be to play until their junior or senior year. Or you go to VCU and start for freshman year and be a major factor.
So I think that if you want to retrofit that into football European wise, that would be more player based. So like for the same thing for you, like getting that win and like putting a college on the map.
Yeah.
The World Cup and the Euros and stuff like that is a way for a player to get on the map.
Yeah.
In the same way, like
Kylian Mbappe.
They can go and play for like Nigeria and like be incredible, and like they could be playing for some South African team, and someone then will be willing to take a punt on them in the Premier League.
And then, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that like in college basketball,
Mbappe was good, and people knew of him, but his cachet just went through the roof after the World Cup.
And with college basketball and world football in general, there's kind of a lot of similarities in that like a player can make a team. So Davidson locally here was a relative unknown, and then Seth Curry happened, and Steph, Jesus, Steph's his brother that's not as talented.
No.
But the Mavericks signed him anyways. So Steph comes in, and they don't win the tournament. I don't think they even...
the Sweet 16?
I'm sorry. They didn't advance far in the tournament, is what I meant to say. I'm sorry. So they went to the Sweet 16, but like, there's definitely smaller or same-size relative programs that have done better. But
VCU made it to the Final Four one year.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But it helped Davidson's enrollment now, and it launched Steph Curry's career, because what he was doing, he was playing in a weaker league in general, but he played a team in like Maryland. I can't remember what it was.
Maryland Eastern Shore or something like that. Yeah,
who decided to put 3 men on him. So it's 5-on-5, and 3 men were guarding him at all times during the game, and he still hung like 30 on him or something like that. It was fucking insane.
Yeah.
So like a player can make a team the same way in the World Cup, where like the more Poland, since we talked about Poland, is not a bad team because they've all grown together. So like you have teams that are blue bloods, and even
star though, Poland.
Yeah.
Lewandowski.
For sure. And so like Duke for a long time was kind of that Poland. They were always good, but they never had like one dude that was so incredible above everybody else.
Right.
Now they're starting to get those kids.
Duke?
Yeah. Duke's always had powerful teams, but have they... All right.
Grant Hill?
Grant Hill is not that good. I'm talking... All right, I'm strictly speaking in my viewership here, which started basically when I met Kyle for college basketball. So Duke always had a rounded team, but I felt like they never had a Kevin Durant. Do you know what I mean? Like what Durant was to Texas.
Okay, well that's just transcendence. You didn't watch the 90s and early 2000s Duke teams because, I mean, that's when you had Elton Brand on there.
Gross.
And he was great. Shane Battier was a great college player.
Great defensive guy in the NBA.
Yeah. But, I mean, they were great college. But Jay Williams, before he got hurt in his car accident, or motorcycle accident, and ended up having to do computation.
So that's just the thing. There's probably plenty of Polish players that are great world players surrounded by their people that they grew up with and going through the camps with and everything.
Steady.
Yeah, Poland and camps is kind of a weird thing. That's kind of weird.
Steady old.
But that's a rough one.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah, that's gonna holocaust us a sponsorship. I tell you that much.
Oh boy.
So this podcast brought to you by Gillette. Wow, Kyle, Gillette is all I was gonna go with, and you went full board.
Sorry,
I don't even know where to go from there. So
we can talk about Blue Bloods. So Blue Bloods in the English Premier League, if you're going to go there, would be more classified as not the top six, but the teams that have probably been in the top flight the longest, right?
Yeah.
So they don't have to have the most money. So, for example, Arsenal have spent 99 seasons in the top division of English football.
Straight,
consecutive.
Jesus.
Everton.
What if they got relegated right before 100? How great would that be?
Everton are at 64, Liverpool 56, Manchester United 43, Spurs 40, Chelsea 29. Like, you can see the significant drop off at that point.
Yeah.
And just to show how recently Man City got good, 16.
That's true. That's true. Man City was pretty shit.
They were dog before they got bought out.
They used to be the punchline, right? Like that's what I always from Kyle in Dallas when he's a Manchester United fan. He always shit on City, and then all of a sudden
can't shit on them anymore.
Yeah, City's shitting on everybody.
Yeah. So I think that would be the closest thing to Blue Bloods, so to speak, like the ones who have just got the longest tenure.
And what's kind of neat in college basketball, and it's not exclusive. College football has this a little bit too. But sometimes you'll have, like, I think it was South Dakota, or it was maybe a North Dakota team, and it was a couple of years ago, and they only, I think, won 1 or 2 games in the tournament, which is
North State probably.
It was really significant for that program, but in the big scheme of things, and the other teams, it was kind of nothing. But the way they did it was their entire team was basically seniors and juniors on the 4-year spectrum, and they recruited those guys to grow together over 4 years. And you could see the teams, they'd win this many games, and they won a little bit more the next year, and a little more the next year, and then they were dominant when they were seniors relative to their competition, and were able to field like a really good team, and these guys had played for 4 years, which is why the Kentuckys and a lot of...
much faith in Kentucky.
Yeah, it's hard to have faith in Kentucky because all these dudes, for the most part, are playing with each other for 1 year only, and that's it. Right. And not only that, but the way they play isn't necessarily a team game of offense. It's a dribble and dish. Like, it's a drive and dish.
They're 18, 19-year-old kids instead of 22-year-old kids who, a little more...
Who've also been told their entire life that they're the fucking best basketball players. So, they'll still share. They still fit that scheme, but it's...
Kentucky plays...
It's in a lot of ways... It's ugly basketball.
It's drive and dish. It's I hate it.
It's styles make fights.
Yeah, I think it's just if you're going to go for long-term success, in England, the English national team are only just starting to get this, and the US a few years behind, but they're doing it too. You watch the dominance of the Germans and the Spanish over the last 10 years,
it's been the same team.
And you watch them, and you go through, and they've been playing together since they were 15. And they've been built up slowly, and we've started catching on about 5-6 years ago, and we're starting to reap the rewards now with a World Cup semi-final appearance, and people are oh yeah, these are the ones that came through the under 18 championship, under 19 championship,
where player A knows exactly what player B is going to do
because it's something they've done all their life, and you guys are probably 5 years behind us because you're starting to get the youth. But you haven't got them starting to play together from a young age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a case of bringing them together consistently.
I know
now
that
for the next
very
5
recently
years.
they did start doing with the U19 or whatever it is. Weston McKinney and Tim Weah and all those guys were playing together. Zach Steffen, they're all playing together, and now they're all starting to show up on the men's national team. So we're starting to see that.
Because you're going to see that over the next 4 to 6 years, the English national team will go from half decent to very good, because we've won the under 18 World Cup, under 19 World Cup, and the under 21 or under 20 World Cup in the last 3 years.
Well, that's what.
So they're the same people that'll be at 2022 in that joke of a World Cup.
But it's kind of interesting too, because you have a lot of countries that have that same, that are trying to use that same plan now, and I'll keep referencing Kyle from Dallas because he listens, but also because he thinks that Mexico in this next World Cup is probably, and actually I don't think I've even asked him about this next World Cup, but he had told me years ago that this World Cup this year was going to be a pretty good year for Mexico because those dudes had grown together, and because they had also won a major tournament for their under 18s, and it was that same team coming up, and you could see a lot of young players on that team doing some shit, which is really exciting. But it's going to be interesting with in 4 years. Let's say they're at their peak, performance. But it just so happens that 5 other countries are also at their peak, with England coming into stride, and then Germany and Spain doing their thing anyways, and then France is young and they're getting better, and all that other shit. Mexico's still going to be left out because
the English are winning tournaments at under 19 against the Spanish and the Germans and the French, and Mexico are winning it against the US and Cuba.
God, that's going to be so disappointing when they still win the World Cup for you. It's so rough.
For us?
Yeah,
I'm under no illusions.
Dude,
at least we'll be competitive now.
Listeners, experiencing this year's World Cup with Josh, for the first time a World Cup with Josh, and he was dogged the English team over and over because he didn't want to get his hopes up. And I swear to God, the minute that they got into the round of 16, he was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to trust it.
And then they won a penalty shootout.
Yeah, they won a penalty shootout. And it was and he came in with his face painted at work with the fucking Union Jack and was just all gung-ho.
He brought in 3 stuffed lions.
Full suit, a full suit of armor.
Yeah, he actually adopted 3 kittens and brought them in to be mascots. They shit everywhere.
Shaved them so that they had a mane.
Even had the Queen over as a special guest.
We'll have to get her on the podcast.
Fireside chat.
No, he just put on royal garb on his wife and brought her
and a wig, and it's the Queen, everybody, with a stuffed corgi.
One final spot about basketball. I want to touch on Syracuse because it's my team. They are senior and junior laden. They returned everybody from last year, a team that went to the Sweet 16. I fully expect them to finally not be sitting on the bubble at the end of the year, which will be really nice for my sanity.
How strong is the ACC this year?
Oh, they've got 7 teams in the top 25 right now. They've got...
But if they're that, which we believe they're going to be that strong, if Syracuse is the 7th, that still should be a shoo-in for the tournament.
I think that Syracuse will be top 4 in the ACC, though.
Top 4.
They've got probably one of the best defenses.
So behind Duke.
Behind Duke, probably UVA.
Behind
UNC.
Really?
Yeah. It'll be a shootout, I think, between those 4 teams. Because I also don't know how good Duke's going to be against the zone.
Yeah.
It's a very long zone.
Plus, you got young players that have never seen it. Even though they're really good. It's going to be the first time they've seen that.
And Syracuse has a 7'2" center manning the middle. And
for now.
He played all last year.
Yeah, but I feel like any center, ever since what's-his-face for the academic eligibility.
Fat Mello.
Ever since Fat Mello.
Yeah, no, see, Fat Mello was good.
And then he finally got it through his head.
No, don't do that.
Where did he get shot at?
In Brazil.
Oh, that's why.
Of course they did.
Yeah,
that's where he's from.
That's very on brand.
Water is wet. People get shot.
People get shot in Brazil, and the world turns.
Yeah, I expect them to be top 4 in the ACC. Probably not win the ACC tournament. I expect them to go at least Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. They have an outside shot of winning. I don't know why. There's no reason why they can't.
Yeah. I mean, it's at some point.
You got to get hot at the right time. That's all
Yeah.
and that's a discussion for another time and what makes a good NCAA tournament team. But
Cool. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot during the season too. Just with me constantly asking you why they lost the game.
yeah, the constant whipping of Kyle's ass.
And so the combination of the Premier League retrofit and everything is going to work perfectly into our next topic. We're going to talk about the soccer or the European Super League that apparently I had only learned about last week and had been a topic of discussion since 2016. And we don't have to spend much time on it. But Josh, you want to summarize what it is first?
Sure.
Because you'll be able to say those teams' names better than I will.
So, Der Spiegel came out last week. They're a website that are kind of like WikiLeaks for sports, with a bunch of information on
If it was basketball, it'd be Wiki Sneaks, just to be clear. That's
Good one. He's finished.
That's all for us, guys. Thank you for listening. Kyle's jumped out of a window.
Didn't even think they were that soft to jump out of. Anyway.
Kyle's got a hard head.
Yeah.
Super League.
See Syracuse. Sorry, go ahead.
No,
through my computer through the window.
See Jacksonville. See Blake Balls. So this conversation has actually been going on a lot longer than 2016. In an official rumor format, it's been going on since then, but people have been talking about this since I can ever remember. Since money started getting crazy, people were talking about some kind of league like this.
Yeah.
People have made this kind of league in Football Manager mods, like they've gone all in, like it's a fun idea, but the idea is disgusting in practice.
Yeah. Is that what that World League mod's loosely tied off of?
Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically what they're planning to do is have a 16-team competition. They're going to take teams out of the current European leagues and have them in a group stage and knockout round beginning in 2021 is the rumor. It would have, and here's the best part, it would have 11 core founding members. The rumors are that they are Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Juventus, AC Milan, and PSG, Paris Saint-Germain.
So all 5 of those English teams, were those the teams you were just listing with the years?
Where's
Everyone but
Spurs?
Chelsea, right?
Spurs aren't in there, Valencia aren't in there, Borussia Dortmund aren't in there.
But they'd leave the
they're one of the
Premier League, right?
proposed
They
first.
would leave the Premier League.
So
yes.
in this situation, Arsenal hits 101 years in the Premier League, and they're like, bye.
And then bounce. Yes. This is the best part, right? They would invite 5 guest teams at the beginning of every season. However, the founder clubs would be immune from any kind of relegation and guaranteed spots in the league for 20 years.
So
Completely waters down the Premier League.
It doesn't only water down the Premier League, but it waters down every other league in the world, really, in Europe, and
Yeah.
it also means the end of the Champions League. That is entirely gone.
So this,
Not a fan.
here's what I'm curious is, and maybe it's because it's just a rumor kind of at this point, but like if a guest team, which was one of the Atletico Madrid, so if they're a guest club, right?
Yes.
They leave their league
Yep.
and come play,
Yep.
and let's say they stay up
Sure.
and they play for 2 seasons and then they get relegated. Where do they fit when they go back to their own league?
Well, they're
That's
not
the
going to
issue,
be
right?
welcomed back.
Right,
That's
because
the
they
thing.
just burnt their...
Yeah, and we've seen that happen. Like back in the day, Cardiff and Swansea, when they became a team, and they were like, okay, this is how it is. Like Cardiff City are a football team. They had to decide early on whether they were going to go to the Welsh Premier League or the English National Football League, and they chose to go to the English side, and that's it. Like they're cut off from the Welsh Football League.
Yeah.
Good for them,
Yeah.
because Swansea and Cardiff are the only big cities in Wales, and they did the right thing. But like, no one's going to welcome these teams back if they get relegated from this league. No one will.
Right, and to be just devil's advocate, right? Like in 21 years, Manchester United gets relegated, and they're finally eligible to get relegated. They're now a team without a league, and then they go back to the Premier League, and who in 20 years, which will change a lot of the power structure.
Yeah.
Who's gonna be like, yeah, you know what? We'll go down one, and y'all can come back in, take your rightful spot.
The thing is like
back of the bus.
Yeah,
right.
I don't think they'd be allowed back out.
They start back at the very bottom,
and everybody leaves.
We
completely destroy the team because then everybody would leave to go somewhere else where they could be visible and get
not
more
only
money.
that, but like I understand why they want to do it. Right, they want to do it to get TV deals that are going to be astronomical in terms of the money that they will pay, and they want to be able to go across the world, tour the world with these with this league. The problem is that, and we've seen it before, and we'll see it if they try and do it now, that the Champions League is an attraction because it's a one-off thing. Like, you may not see Manchester United play Juventus again for another 5 years, and that's why everybody is excited to see Manchester United play Juventus. When you see it twice in a year for the next 20 years, it's not
I can see that
anymore.
Well, then also they're not going to play too many games because it says that they would be divided into 4 groups of 4.
Exactly.
And so are you going to limit it to they only play their groups? It's like a group stage almost?
Because, it sounds like a half-baked TV idea. That the repercussions of... Because I think, honestly, the Premier League's going to be fine, right? And, I bet you teams like... I don't know, is it Leeds, right, is in the Championship?
Mm-hmm.
So, Leeds... That heightens their chance. They're more likely now to get promoted.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a win and get some of that Premier League money.
But they're not going to get that huge TV money that they used to get in the Premier League
because the money
the draws are gone.
And the thing is they'll find out very quickly that these attendances that they're expecting to get and the TV tune-in attendances as opposed to the viewership they're expecting to get won't be there because since this has came out. Everybody across Europe, all of these teams' fans are like, absolutely not. Anybody who is German is pissed at the idea of Bayern Munich leaving. So, sure, they could get 50,000 people in a stadium in Japan, but they're not going to bring the money that an entire German infrastructure in Munich gives them every week. It's not. I think it will bite them in the ass bad if they do it.
It's kind of like the 2 in the hand, 1 in the bush thing, and they're taking the 1 in the bush, and they're going to end up... You'd maybe end up with Bayern being a better world brand. Cool, that's a win. A win for merchandising, a win for TV. But you've completely burnt, let's say it's a quarter of your fan base at home.
You've neutered the Bundesliga.
Right. If you destroyed the validity of that league.
Well, that's what would happen with the Premier League too. Is because now you're taking out 5 of the biggest draws right there, and now you've got so let's say that.
So is the Premier League brand not strong enough to survive it?
Not without those 5. I think they would be
strong.
It will
survive it just
but
fine.
I feel like
the money isn't going to be there.
And I feel like if a team wins. Little asterisk would go next to it because, they won, but they didn't have to deal with 5 of those powers that have always.
And then
been
what
there.
will happen next, right? Within 10 years of this league being a thing, what will happen is that the winners, the new big 3 or the big 2 in the Premier League will get so big that they'll probably be able to beat them on any other day. And then because it will build itself back up because the football pyramid in Europe isn't going to disappear.
Yeah.
People are still going to go to those games, and if anything. They'll treat all of these clubs like MK Dons, and that will be they will be the black sheep, and people will go to these other teams and they will isolate anybody who's a fan of these, and it will become almost like an embarrassment to support them. Because they're essentially a franchise at that point.
And I wonder, and not to disagree for disagreeing, but I think Premier League stocks, right? And it still improves and is good and retains its old... If you want to just put a pure grade on ability across the league, it gets back up there. But if they think this money is drastic enough to do this, the Manchesters, the Juventus, all them, wouldn't it, by the money that they're making, potentially allow them to... It's basically a touring Pro Bowl, and they've got fucking all-stars up and down, top
I think
and
that would happen, is they would sign all the great players away.
So you have 11 teams that are going to have first pick for a transfer fee because they can afford. That are basically all outbidding everyone else in those domestic.
Yeah, until those domestic leagues put in restrictions saying that those 11 can't sign them.
Ooh.
You see what I mean? Like, and these are gonna. That would
be so.
Do you know what I mean? This is just.
And you're just like, sorry guys.
This is just me. Imagine what the FAs are thinking. They can go way more devilish than me in one go because this is.
Well, I think I saw a headline too that FIFA came out and said that they'd be banned from the Champions League.
They would just
because
the Champions League.
That's why they think they're trying to keep the Champions League afloat and saying like, well, y'all are fucking banned if you look at like.
And Bayern Munich have came out and said that it's absolutely not true too.
Yeah,
they have said verbatim. FC Bayern Munich stand by its membership of the Bundesliga, and as long as I am chairman of the board of FC Bayern, also by the club competitions organised jointly by UEFA and the ECA. So we are unaware of any recent plans.
So my question is, did the what if he ends up the way of like Leicester's owner and then he's no longer the chairman of the board?
Bayern Munich are actually supporter owned.
Really turn things on its head.
They're supporter owned all the way through.
Okay.
So there are certain teams in that list that are going to be strange to just bounce.
Yeah,
because of the way they're run.
It's weird because in a lot of ways, a lot of these teams, because the accessibility is part of it, but I really enjoy watching like Premier League soccer anyways, right?
Yeah.
Like I've become where I am aware and know of the Brighton Hove stuff, but I'm definitely like not an expert, and I listen to a shitty podcast about it that kind of keeps me updated.
Yeah.
But
that's fair.
But also if there's but if Liverpool and Man City are on, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
And like the other side of that coin is if Real Madrid's playing anyone in their league that's not Barcelona, I don't give a fuck. Like, and it's not because I don't give a fuck with who they're playing, but like honestly, I know a lot less about any of those leagues, which is natural, and I think that's probably most American fans because even if you're a diehard Bayern fan, you can't get all those games as easily as you can if you're a Man City fan or a Watford fan or whatever.
Yeah, because the Premier League has a deal with NBC.
Exactly. Yeah, which was what we directly benefit from. That's great. You moved to the right country. You married the right girl. Because if you had been, I don't know what the TV deal is in Austria, but if you met an Austrian girl,
I don't think it's as accessible in England.
No, you can't watch a 3:00 kickoff on TV in England.
Fuck.
That's why we all go. That's one of the biggest, biggest reasons we go. Is like that's like the idea of showing a 3:00 kickoff.
God, thank God the fucking good. It's not like that here. Although the blackout shit in.
But you've also got to think of the fact that the US is a massive country, and the UK, the Premier League's longest game is the Brighton Newcastle this year, like in terms of travel. And that's like a 7-hour trip via car, which is massive, but when you put into perspective of here, like it's nothing.
Which is what like
driving to DC.
Which is what like 10% of any university students travel to go back to school, like back and forth. During the semesters.
One last thing on this though, because this is my favorite part. These 11 founding clubs are supposed to be the elite of the elite, correct?
Isn't Milan kind of shit right now?
You would agree that if you're going to create a Super League, they have to be the 11 best.
Right.
3 of them ain't even in the Champions League. They ain't qualified for it.
But Chelsea didn't.
Milan Arsenal didn't. AC Milan didn't. None of them qualified for the UEFA Champions League.
Do you think those teams?
Rough years lately.
Yeah.
Do you think those teams and AC Milan? Let me tell you that the crest that they have is dog shit. It's a dog shit brand. At me, AC Milan. If anyone's listening, just at me. I just want to see anything. Do you think that would inspire them to be more like this then? When they have league, they're like, oh, we didn't make the Champions League?
Maybe.
I mean, it's they're losing that revenue.
But how are they going to buy? Like, how are people going to buy into them being elite when everyone knows that they're not even Champions League eligible? Right. You know what I mean?
And Man U right now is having an issue.
Manchester, and any of these teams could fall out of grace. Like, if the Sheikh at Manchester City bails out next month, like they're doomed. They're gonna what happens then? Legit, what happens if something really bad happens? E.g., the Leicester City incident.
Right.
What if that happens to the Sheikh who owns Man City, and that's like they're locked into a 20-year contract? and they've got no money
Right.
to spend because they're in so much debt, and he can't afford it. Like, and they collapse. Then what? You invite a guest in?
Well,
like it's so
right.
cardboard. Like it's just not.
Yeah, it honestly it sounds like something that is fun in Football Manager, and that's it. Like the practical nature of it.
There is no practicality.
Yeah, when you have zeros and ones moving across the whole world to play matches, it's no big deal. But like this shit is dog shit. And going using that as a segue, dog shit. Let's talk about the college football playoff rankings. So small I'm going to pre-talk for a second. Pre-talk.
Pre-talk.
I'm going to pre-talk. That's a joke. What was it that Norm says?
Pre.
So
Pre-ask you this question.
So I'm going to do this in as little words as possible, right? So for a long time, college football had multiple champions in years. Back in like the 50s, the 10s, the 30s, all that other shit, because there wasn't really a governing board, and there were different polls.
Okay.
So in the 90s, there was the BCS, and the BCS put computers in charge, but the computers were judging off a lot of the polls data, right? And so you had this thing that ended up coming up with the playoff because people were upset because what you ended up having is these polls. For instance, the BCS used the Harris poll. The Harris poll was voted on by the exact amount of members in Division I football, and each team was able to present a representative to submit their rankings. So what do you think is going to fucking happen when a University of Texas alum or former coach or whatever his relationship is has to make a ranking, and his team's third by everybody else's metric, but it's first by his,
right,
is going to do with his polls. And so you'd have that skewing the BCS a little bit, but you'd also have just like two teams, and the numbers would go up to 1. And so you're like 1 would be a perfect score if every single team, everyone put you at 1 or whatever it is. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, though, right? So like your first team would be like 0.935, and your second team would be like 0.932, and then so on and so forth. The second and third were really, really close in a lot of ways. And what would end up happening was teams would sometimes get punished because they played one extra game. So
Gotcha.
like LSU would lose to Alabama, and they're in a division in a greater conference. Because of that loss, their only loss that year, they didn't go to the conference championship, which Alabama would go to. On the other side of that conference is another division, and let's say that team went undefeated, and Georgia, and their only loss was to Alabama, same as LSU, in the conference championship. Well, because of the recency and LSU not playing that extra game, they wouldn't have a loss as their last game, basically, and it would keep them in that BCS sometimes above where Georgia
would fall because they had just lost.
Right, exactly.
Gotcha.
So
and the BCS would pick 2 teams. Those 2 teams would play in the national championship.
So it was rigged as fuck, really.
It's always going to be moderately like. It's always going to be a little subjective, right? Like until they do variables and pure math, and even then,
until they extend it to 8 teams.
Yeah, or 8 teams, and even then the 9th team's going to be like, fuck off. We beat the 3rd and 4th team, but because we lost to the 20th team in like the second to last week, we're fucked.
Gotcha.
You know, and the college football rankings is a board of considerably less members. I think it's 12,
something like that
are voting. But like, guess what? All these motherfuckers still went to a university.
Frank Beamer's in there.
Frank Beamer's in there for Virginia Tech, and
he's stumping for the ACC.
What's her face? Rice. Condoleezza Rice is on the board, and like,
oh shit.
So besides their measurables, the college football playoff ranking is stupid. Before I even start talking about it, for 2 reasons. One, it's always going to be biased. And the other part, actually there's 3, fuck that. 2 is there's already other polls, the AP being probably the most respected, that are going on at the same time. So you have conflicting, where one's 7 here but 10 here. So who do you trust? Well, since they're deciding the college football playoff, they're by default the most legit.
They're the poll of record.
Right, they're the poll of record, which is bullshit. But also that right now, in November 7th, they have fucking rankings at all when there's still 4 weeks or so to go. Mm-hmm. Like, that's fucking retarded. Because now...
And there was a real big deal made about that ranking thing.
Well, there's always a big deal.
There's always a big deal. But here's the other part, too.
Publicity.
Like, yeah. And, like, there's probably a bigger segment that I can bitch about, like, rankings in general. Because rankings shouldn't be... Just like in the Premier League, they don't pre-rank the fucking teams. You just let them play. And it's different in college football because you can't play all 127 teams. Yeah. But to do that, as you look at it right now, right? So, like, University of Notre Dame's 3, Michigan's 4.
Yep.
So that's great. That's really good for Michigan. And like everyone kind of expected, I think, this year to be their year, but it's still really surprising. Michigan lost to Notre Dame. So
it was the first week of the season.
First week of the season. Exactly, yeah. That's when you jumped on the bandwagon for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Not bandwagon, I'm sorry. You bleed gold and navy.
I mean, yeah, I jumped on the bandwagon. So I was told they were bang average.
So here's the problem with it.
I was told they were average, and now they're third. So.
Michigan looks really good, and I think you can probably decisively say they're a good team at this point.
Right.
If that loss came into the first week of the season and it was to
Northwestern.
Let's
take a team that's
in the division.
Than them.
Okay, so Northwestern.
Lower than them, but still kind of looked at as an okay team.
And they lost in the same exact fashion. Mm-hmm. And it proceeded. Michigan is not 4th. They're 6th, maybe 7th.
Gotcha.
And that's not to say that that's invalid because their only loss is to a team that's ranked above them.
Right.
But
I was going to say,
why are they ranked above them?
Because they beat them.
Right. Like now. But like why does it matter if Notre Dame just fucking tanks, right?
Right.
It's going to retroactively
hurt Michigan.
But not
Notre
because
Dame loses to Syracuse.
If Notre Dame loses, it hurts Michigan.
Because Michigan got beat by Notre Dame.
Right. And the dumbest thing in the world in college football is the transitive property, even though it is the most fun because you can see like, oh, really shit team beat like moderately shit team who beat just a little bit better team who beat just a little bit better team, and then it's like, oh, cool, Central Michigan beat Notre Dame, whatever. Like something fucking insane.
So it's kind of like, but they actually do that. They actually do the records on that. They actually put the rankings based on that in a small way.
Yeah, so because strength of schedule comes into play.
So they really do like at home you'd be like, well, Farnborough Town beat Lincoln in the FA Cup, and Lincoln beat Everton in the FA Cup 2 years ago, and Everton beat Man United this week, and Man United just beat Juventus, and Juventus beat Real Madrid. So technically, your Lincoln City are the best in the world.
Yeah, exactly. Which is always which is funny because as like a 7th grader, that was always fun and a good bit. When you wanted to start a fight, but like that it actually has a kind of play, right? Because what should happen is at the end of the year, you can collectively see how every team's done and be like, oh, cool, that win against Florida State is not impressive, so it's not going to weigh a decision good or bad,
right?
And here's a good example of the strength of schedule part, right? So like University of Central Florida, who won the national championship last year. They haven't lost the game since
they won the whole thing.
No, they went undefeated and they didn't get they didn't get put in the championship in the playoff because strength of schedule, things like that. Well, their athletic department declared them the national champions and they hung a banner.
And here's another note too.
So
their postseason game, their bowl game, they beat the shit out of a team that beat the 2 national championship teams.
Who were the national championship teams?
So it was Georgia against Alabama, and Auburn beat both of them that year. Mm-hmm. So transitive win, UCF national championship, but if they were in the actual playoff, would they win it? They would have had a shot. Like, it might have been a 1-12. And they're still really, really fun. But they haven't lost in 2016. And Kentucky might have gone bowling. They might have won 6 games last year. And they're really pretty good this year relative to what Kentucky's usually at. There's no reason that Kentucky should be above UCF, period.
Okay.
Except that Kentucky, they lost to Georgia, but they beat Florida. Florida on this list?
Yeah. Oh, there they are.
They beat Florida, which helps. So that's better than UCF beating like Temple, whose Temple is like good, but they're not
as good.
In SEC, they're not a conference like.
What's helping Syracuse out of 7-2 is that they beat number 14 North Carolina State.
Right. Like it's
and they lost to number 2 Clemson.
Gotcha.
So it's
if you'd have beaten Clemson, you reckon you'd be like top 8?
We'd beaten Clemson, we'd be at least top 10.
Who was the other loss to?
Pitt.
Fucking Pitt.
In overtime. At Pitt, but
yeah. Pitt
went and beat UVA this past week.
Yeah.
Now Pitt's leading that side of the conference.
Yes. So like in a real statistical model, that works. The wins over certain people and the margin of victory and who you play is a good measure, but like the way the college playoff committee does it, it seems pretty fucking average, because what an analytical and S&P Plus rankings is like my favorite, because what they'll do is they'll punish you if you're a really good team and you're playing a really bad team and you should win by 50 and you win by 40. They'll punish you because you should have won by 50.
If you were not an efficient team, they will.
Right, you'll get hammered.
Syracuse is 58.
50, yeah, they're 58 in S&P Plus, but they're 13th in the college, in the polls, which is not to say that they're not a good team. On any given day, they could, right? So, what I wanted to focus on was two teams in particular, because I want those sweet retweets by Jeff from Michigan. Michigan is probably not going to make the college football playoff.
It depends on what they do. It depends. If they win out, they're in.
No, agreed. So they have at Ohio State.
That's the
tough one, right? And then they're going to play whoever it is. They have legends and leaders. I don't know which division's which.
I think they changed it.
They changed it back to West and East.
Yeah, something like that.
When they added Rutgers and Maryland, I think they did. So they're going to probably play Northwestern. Who's sticky, but I don't think that if let's say they win out, which is good, and they win over Northwestern, I think that Notre Dame's probably, if we're assuming Notre Dame's going to go undefeated, and we assume Clemson's going to stay undefeated, so there's 2 spots. Alabama's going to go undefeated, and if they lose in the conference championship game, they're still going to be in.
Yes. Now, if they lose in the conference championship and Georgia wins, Georgia's going to go in over Michigan.
And that's who. They've already been decided. Georgia and Alabama are going to be in the conference championship. So
how do you weigh that out? Why?
Because
of
just
records.
Mathematics. Yeah, just like so based on the records currently. If they both are really, really bad the rest of the way, they've got enough wins in conference versus their other conference mates that they'll win.
Georgia tanks beforehand, loses some games.
Let's say Georgia loses one game, though, and then still beats Alabama. They're going to beat Alabama, who, by the way, is like death machining everybody. So they'll get in the top 4. Like Michigan...
I don't know if they put a 2-loss Georgia team in over a 1-loss Michigan that wins their conference championship.
I guess part of it's going to be how badly or how closely Michigan would beat Ohio State in this hypothetical, but also if Ohio State doesn't lose another game between now and then.
Yeah.
Which I am just going to pull up their the rest of their schedule. They have at Michigan State, which is fucking. So it's probably going to be rainy.
That's a wild card game. Michigan State's not bad either. So
here's spoiler alert. They are bad. They're just fucking bipolar. Like Michigan State.
The Michigan playing Michigan. Is that the one? Is this the game you're talking about? Michigan or
we're talking about Michigan playing Ohio State at the end of the season, but Michigan played Michigan State recently, which is a huge rivalry.
Okay.
But Michigan State is a team that. I saw a meme that was, the Slaps hood. The Slaps
car
hood
salesman meme.
Yeah. So it was it was a guy slapping a car that said Michigan State football, and it said, "This bad boy can fit so much unfucking believable football in it, or like batshit crazy football in it, because they'll go and they'll lose to a team that is awful because they have no offense because they play to their opponent, but then they'll play a big team and like their defense looks like the fucking Chicago Bears playing a high school team for like 3 quarters, enough to keep them in the game. You know what I mean? Like, and they're perennial like rug pullers. They pull the fucking rug out from people all the time.
To summarize that game against Ohio State, it's a total crapshoot. We don't know what team is going to show up for Michigan State.
Because Ohio State's also been kind of sketchy this year. They've shown only one big flaw, but boy was it a big one. And they got their ass handed
They got
to them.
scalped by Purdue.
Yeah, scalped. That's really racially insensitive. So, you fuck. God, what a bastard.
Yeah, I know.
I also wanted to talk about, like, so they, just a little bit, because we're coming pretty close. We're about to be as long as a Paul Pogba penalty kick, which is, been trying to fit that bad boy in here all fucking day. Woo!
Look at you.
Fucking draft me.
It's a shame that no one's listening this far.
So do you, it really, you know what, or at all, to be honest.
Your wife's not going to be impressed.
Yeah, I'm going to explain the whole bit to her. And the kid. So
Should just say no.
tell me what you think was the best Syracuse win this year that would make them earn a 13th spot in the college football playoff rankings.
It's the NC State win.
Okay.
And the fact that they were close to Clemson. That has a lot to do with it. And it also doesn't hurt that the weeks where they were kind of knocking on the door, there was a ton of losses by teams that were in that 25 to 17 range. And then when they got up to 19, there were a ton of losses for teams that were in that 13 to 19
it's
range.
kind of a war of attrition, I feel like, for... and that's...
The polls are littered with teams that are 8-1, 7-2 right now.
And Josh, you might hear the term Alabama fatigue. I heard Jeff use it today, but also I've heard it a lot in the last week because they just keep winning, and a lot of people think that's boring for the sport. But if you look at it from and not to shoehorn this in, but like a Premier League perspective, right? Like the 16th and 17th and 18th positions in that table are just as important races as the first, right? And for a lot of these teams, getting to a bowl game is really important because it's extra money, but also extra exposure because a team like Nevada, the Wolfpack, don't have a whole lot of TV opportunities for people to see in North Carolina. But in a bowl game, usually
televised.
It's usually going to be a nationally televised game. Which makes me want to break. And also, if Syracuse beats number 3 Notre Dame and number 17 Boston College
and wins this week against Louisville,
hammers Louisville, do you think they have? And they beat Clemson in the. Oh, Clemson's got to lose, don't they?
Syracuse isn't going to make it to the Syracuse to make it into the ACC tournament or ACC championship. Clemson would have to lose 3 games.
And what was the number you said to be in the New Year's Six Bowl?
To be in the top 12.
Do you think?
Syracuse is 13 right now. If Syracuse...
If this is the final poll that's up right now, and you have... Everyone's one out at this point, right? That makes sense, or stayed up that makes sense. Do you think that an undefeated Central Florida deserves that spot more than what would be 10-2 Syracuse team?
Well, see, that skews because it can't be that. It can't be this ranking. Syracuse goes 10-2 because Notre Dame would be one of those wins.
But Notre Dame would stay up. They probably lost to Syracuse. Ooh, I see what you're saying.
Syracuse jump
Okay,
up.
well, quit fucking ruining my hypothetical with reality and just tell me, if it came down between Central Florida or Syracuse, do you think Syracuse should get picked above them? UCF would be 13-0 because the conference championship.
Let's say UCF is 13-0, Syracuse is 9-3. Let's say that Syracuse loses to Notre Dame, beats Louisville, beats Boston College.
Yeah.
Because if Syracuse loses to Boston College and Notre Dame, yes, definitely UCF. Honestly,
but if they beat Notre Dame and lose to Boston College, you think they're for sure?
So if they're 9-3 and
with the win
over Notre Dame,
yeah,
probably.
Okay, and so here's UCF's wins.
Well, I don't know because BC is the last game of the season.
But only the top 4 teams can win the big boy, though, right?
Yeah. But
So who gives
we've
a
moved
shit about
on.
the rest.
Because
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that there's
you've got to
there's a lot of games that
because the top 2 are like in the college football playoffs are around for 4 years now.
Yeah.
And Clemson and Alabama have played in every one of them.
So if the top 4 happens, does 4th play 3rd, or like how does that work?
4th and 1st, 2nd and 3rd.
second place plays 3rd.
Okay, and then.
And as the playoff is gone,
It's like a
that 2-3
semi-final.
matchup's always really pretty fun.
So it's like a semi-final, right? Do they play at a neutral stadium, or do they play at the better team?
Yeah,
Okay,
neutral
because I wasn't sure if like Alabama, for example, would host Michigan, and then Clemson would host Notre Dame.
They play it at
in the
both
interest of
sites.
real.
I mean, by ranking, it'll be like 2 is still the home team over 3, but they're playing in fucking
Right.
Dallas
Tempe,
instead of
Arizona
whatever.
or something like that. Yeah.
So here's why I think that UCF would be above Syracuse, because they beat Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And Pittsburgh beat you.
And Syracuse lost to Pittsburgh. Yeah, that's fine. No, I
Just in case.
just said that.
No, let me say, hold on. I don't think I was clear. They beat Pittsburgh. They also beat Temple. They didn't play North Carolina. They'll be 12-0 as the max because North Carolina canceled their game.
Yeah,
because that shitty hurricane that wasn't
If
even.
UCF goes 12-0 and Syracuse goes 9-3, and that loss is to Notre Dame, I think that UCF is ahead of Syracuse.
Let's bookend it with these. Definitely going to probably change every single week bowl projections because I think there's a few cool, fun matchups, right? So these bowl projections would be matchups post, not including the playoff, right? So where everyone else would fall and who they'd have to play in post.
And bowls get to offer to teams to, especially like the Belk Bowl here in North Carolina, they will most likely offer like a North Carolina State because they know they're going to get a lot of fans here for it.
Right, versus them saying like, "Hey, San Diego State, come out here."
No, because it's always
bowl games
ACC.
matter.
It's ACC SEC matchup.
that's right.
So instead of taking like Boston College or Syracuse, who their fan base would have to travel, they'll take somebody closer. But a lot of them do have bowl tie-ins where it's like the second team in this division or in this.
It's kind of seated similar to how like Champions League's bids are earned. If you place second in the Big 12 conference, you've got a home in this bowl game.
Right. I thought it would just be like Georgia would take on Oklahoma, Louisiana.
that is one of them.
And that can
Virginia
happen.
would
There's
play
like bigger bowls, and they will take the bigger teams.
Yeah,
that's why
okay.
they're called the New Year's Six. And
There's three tiers of bowls, right? There's your playoffs. There's like the tradition, the really that's your Rose Bowl, your Sugar Bowl, your Fiesta Bowl that are like those are your big name bowls,
but they
big
use
sponsors.
those as sometimes as
They'll confuse you. You're gonna confuse them.
Okay.
So it's stupid, but you have those like legacy like big time bowls, and then everything else is big for their respective fan bases for some teams. But they're usually going to be smaller sponsors.
Well, there's a second tier in there too, which is like the Peach Bowl, the Cotton Bowl,
that are historical, but they're not like big time.
No, they're not. Yeah, they're not the four traditional powers, which are the Rose, the Fiesta, the Sugar, and the Orange.
I'm having a hard time.
Yeah,
Like,
Is it
it's like I'm the champion of everything. Well, I appreciate that, but I want a Peach Bowl. Like, come
Yeah,
on.
and Peach Bowl
Who cares
champions.
what a Peach
Well,
Bowl
but
is?
here's where Peach Bowl can come good. Come
Ripen up.
God,
Yeah.
now you've got
Get
me
all
all twisted.
peachy.
So
it's going to be again between two highly rated teams. A win there is going to boost your cachet, help you out with recruiting,
and like one of the
things like that.
one of the
Get you more
projected
money.
bowls, right? The Fiesta Bowl is a big projected bowl. LSU is like a traditional power, and they're projected to play UCF. If UCF wins that, for UCF, for their recruiting, saying we beat LSU, we beat Auburn the year before, big time programs, it helps them immensely. It's a little bit smaller when you go to like shitty bowls, and it's like Georgia Tech and Purdue. Be a lot of fun. But like, is a Purdue recruit going to be more convinced that
Because they won
because they
some
beat
shitty
Georgia
bowl.
Tech? maybe a little bit, but
More
going
about
out on a
money
win
at that
helps.
point, and just to kind of celebrate the fan base and
It's celebrating a
It's just a
successful
ball-off game,
season.
really.
it's
A winning
celebrating
season.
a successful
A
season.
winning season.
Yeah.
Here's the
By
only bowl
finishing,
game,
like,
and
33rd in the league.
Well, I mean, not in your own conference. You're not, and you're also above 500. There are too many bowls, but
I don't think there are too many bowls. I think that there's too many worthless tie-ins to those bowls. Because, like, the traditional SEC versus Big Ten matchup, and it's like the 5th best and the 4th best from each conference, no one gives a fuck. Let's have Cheez-It, who's a fucking sponsor of a bowl. Highest bidder wins. You fucking pick which 2 teams you want to be in your bowl. And you come at Texas and you're like, here's $100,000, come play in our thing. And then you go to Michigan, who didn't make the playoff because they're not going to, and say, Michigan, here's $100,000, come play in our Cheez-It Bowl. And their interest is in making money and getting the best matchup. Versus, like, Texas versus Utah. Like, I don't care.
yeah.
But here is one bowl that I wanted to point out, and it would be Syracuse going back to the Pinstripe Bowl and going back to New York to play at Yankee Stadium, and it projects them playing Penn State.
Oh, that would be fucking fun.
It'd be huge and it'd be fun, and there's an old rivalry, right?
Huge old rivalry.
But here's the best part: is more than likely 2 quarterbacks are going to die during that game because they have Eric Dungy at Syracuse and Tracy McSorley at Penn State, who are suicidal when they run with the ball. If targeting is leading with the head, they're a targeting quarterback the way they run. Like, they're pretty much a dart flying through to find an ass, and like they do almost every time.
I've shown you Eric Dungy high-kneeing somebody from Miami last
Yes.
year. Yes.
It's almost, you know what? They are the quarterback equivalent of 205 Live. They're just fucking luchadors.
And what would be really fun is that when they play this game, it's in New York City, outdoors. There's a good chance it might be snowing.
It's going to be snowing, so it's going to be So it's going to be basically
Shit
like
show.
Slippery Mr.
Yeah, it's gonna they're probably gonna be breaking and their own and other people's ankles constantly.
But if Syracuse plays really well in these last, if they win 2 out of the next 3, I think they're a better chance of going to the camping sports bowl down in Orlando, which is a
prestigious camping sports bowl.
It used to be the Tangerine Bowl. Got renamed.
Do you see the theme
prefer
here?
Tangerine Bowl
Versus Peach Bowl.
as opposed to
The Orange Bowl, Peach Bowl,
as opposed to the
Tangerine
Cheez-It Bowl.
Yeah, no one.
stuff
You know,
like
one ever
that.
took off the Pear Bowl. No one took the Pear Bowl or.
That's sad. Apple Bowl.
Oh, it's the Dragon Fruit Bowl.
The Grape Bowl. Passion Fruit
Great,
Bowl.
the Passion Fruit Bowl. It's the Avocado Bowl.
The Star Fruit Bowl.
God, I can't find the funniest fruit. Banana.
Guava. Isn't guava? Isn't that a fruit?
Guava is the honey from cactus, I think.
The Pomegranate Bowl. That'd be a good one.
Ooh, there is a poinsettia.
There's the
bowl,
poinsettia
which is always holds a special place because they play in that shitty San Diego stadium that can't keep the chart. Couldn't keep the chart.
Qualcomm.
Yeah.
Awkward.
I think it's probably best to end with the Kiwi Bowl.
Okay.